Ken Trahan with John Curtis, Christian headmaster, and sometimes coach, towel boy. That's another thing. It's a new one. JT Curtis, it's good to be with you, Coach. And obviously, the ever-changing world, I mean, the soap operas are going away on television, but they're certainly not going away when it comes to athletics in the state of Louisiana. The latest revelation is the opportunity to play up in so-called major sports and yet remain on your classification level, which is 3A in division sports. As a result, football, basketball, baseball, track, cross-country, and volleyball, you are playing in 5A. Talk about that decision.
Well, you know, we had to take a long, hard look at what we thought would be best for our school, and I have made that comment to people back 20 years ago, that we're always going to try to think and understand what is in the best interest of all of our young people that choose to play athletics here. And we felt like that would be a move that would be beneficial to us. We would be in great competition. We would be with schools that our academics are important, where athletics is important, and where the emphasis is always placed on the right things. And that goes to the spiritual aspect of our institution, as well as Jesuit and Brother Martin and Rummel and Holy Cross and Shaw. They're faith-based schools, and I think we have a lot in common with them. And so I think it really worked itself out to be a positive all the way around.
Over the years, it's no secret that these schools wouldn't play you in football, with one or two possible exceptions over a period of time, and they had good reason to do so. And I'm sure you understood that from their perspective, maybe not from yours. Now, it's a no-brainer because you not only compete in a regular season in the same district, but you compete in this convoluted, diluted playoff system as well.
And that was one of the negative things that we thought about, that you know, you don't like to have to play teams in the regular season that you possibly could place, and several of them in the playoffs. And that was certainly one of the things that we thought about. But we thought that the benefit in terms of fan interest and in terms of our athletes and the competitive spirit outweighed that. And so we made that move, and we'll see how it plays out. You know, Kenny, the hard thing is to realize that all of this could fall apart in a matter of a year or so, which would be terribly disappointing to me. But the fact of the matter is there's been so much change in the LHSAA in terms of expectations of what's going to come or what could possibly be. We don't know where we're going to be. So in a year or so, we could all be in a same association anyway. And I hope that doesn't happen, but it certainly is a possibility.
Such an incredible focus on football, and yet it involves other sports. And the reality is that John Curtis has competed with many of these Catholic schools on an annual basis in the other major sports.
Well, we have. We play them in basketball and certainly run track against them, and certainly have played them in volleyball and in softball and certainly in baseball, very competitive in baseball. So, again, I think it's going to be extremely exciting for our athletes, and I think the fan interest will just zoom.
From the standpoint of the other sports, that had to make it a lot easier decision that you could keep your other sports, your division sports, that's what we call them, in that realm, so that they would not be asked to have to compete against schools with larger enrollments.
Well, and that was certainly, again, another factor, that the division sports could stay where they are and their programs grow, and perhaps as our programs continue to improve, and they will, we'll make that move into those other divisions. But that certainly was a factor.
And when you look at the landscape, we've talked about it previously, of Louisiana, the fact that you clearly were Exhibit A and a target for many years with the 2004 ruling, with the ruling that came about a couple of years ago, and then the one last year that kind of gave you an escape clause to play up and get bonus points in the process. It's kind of strange that we end up here after all of this, and in a different way, as we've discussed previously. Maybe this helps with healing and maybe bringing this association back together, because now the so-called bad guys are playing at the highest level. What else could you ask for?
Well, and I hope that's the case. I hope that people will take a breath and understand that educators should be able to come to reasonable solutions to problems. And if this will help solve the problem and bring our state closer together and bring us back together, then I'm all for that. If it's just about winning a trophy, if it's just about saying we played for a state championship, then perhaps this won't have any effect at all. But if that's the case, we'll probably be right in this situation anyway. And again, that was part of the thinking as we went through this process.
And finally, you have competed with these other parochial schools and other sports in football. You lost to one in the Dome this past year, and in kind of a weird way there, as we've talked about, maybe that helps a little bit too, because maybe it takes that whole image of, oh, I can't beat the monster or we can't compete with them off the table, because your record against the parochial schools in football over the years has been stellar.
It has been, and certainly that game was an outstanding game. And again, it was one of the factors in our thinking that when you can create that kind of competitive game that brings the fans out and they enjoy that kind of competition. And I can't tell you how many times I had people tell me, Coach, that was one of the best games I've ever seen. The competition, the competitiveness, the way the game was played, and the sportsmanship between the two schools was just outstanding. That's what high school football, and really it's what all football should be about, but certainly at the high school level. So you're right. I think that game went a long way to serve a lot of needs.
JT, thank you. Best of luck to you.
Good. Thank you all.